I actually think that's the beauty of being in relationship, is that we get to learn how to be in negotiation, how to not hold ourselves as the most important thing all the time. Hello, you gorgeous and sexy creature. Welcome to Practice Intimacy. This is the place to be to learn all about love, sex, and how to have the best relationships you possibly can. My name is Jami Lynn. I'm a marriage and family therapist in the Austin area. And I want to talk to you today about your personal philosophy around why you're in relationship, what you're wanting to get out of relationship, and how you want to show up in relationship. And the reason we're going to talk about this is because I think it's actually really useful to have a sense of why am I choosing a partner? Why do I want to be with a partner? So that you can, one, find the right partner for you, and two, make relationship work, because it's actually really challenging sometimes. And so what we'll talk about today is the reason why it's useful to have a personal philosophy of relationship. I'll talk to you a little bit about my perspective on this, the relationship values that I hold right now, because they are ever evolving. And then we'll talk a little bit about how you can find your own personal philosophy of how to be a good lover, a good partner, all of these things that are required to be in relationship. Okay, so let's get started. Why is it important to have a personal philosophy of relationship? Let's start there. The reason is relationships are actually really challenging. In so many ways, it is easier to be single than partnered. In some ways, it's actually easier to be partnered. I'm thinking of financial reasons. It's easier to have more income coming in from two different partners rather than just one person. It is easier to raise children if you have somebody in it with you. It is a little bit easier in some ways to move through this world socially, because single people still, for whatever reason, I think it's ridiculous, archaic thinking, single people are looked down on, like there's something wrong with them. And that's for men and women and all non-binary people too. So there's some reasons why being in a relationship actually is easier. But the thing that makes it harder is that now you have to deal with another human being, all of their idiosyncrasies, all of their wants and desires, which often will conflict with your own. And so it's challenging. It's actually really hard to be in relationship, because you are not going to get every single thing you want all the time. You're going to be challenged by this person, not only in the little day-to-day things like secret agreements around who does what chore and expectations from each other's and the things that you're hoping for that maybe they just don't do in the way that you were wanting, all of that stuff. But then also there's another human who's dealing with their insecurities, their mental health, their ups and downs of life, which are inevitable, and you're going to be in that with them. And so there's really a challenge here. It is easier to live alone because then you can have almost anything you want all the time. You get your way rather than having to do the negotiation of, what do you want? Maybe that conflicts with what I want. How are we going to figure this out? But I actually think that's the beauty of being in relationship, is that we get to learn how to be in negotiation, how to not hold ourselves as the most important thing all the time, and rather understand and recognize that when we can allow other people to be who they are with all their idiosyncratic strangeness, because trust me, you've got things, I've got things that are individually just odd and maybe even challenging to be around. It's true for almost everyone. When you're with a person, you get to learn how to manage that, how to manage the difficulty of being imperfect, being human, being flawed. And I really think that's the beauty of relationship. When I think about my personal relationship philosophy, it's that we get into relationship to become our best selves. That's the way I think about it right now. We find partners who are going to challenge us to grow. Usually we find people who are opposite from us in specific ways that we could learn to grow into. I'm thinking about my journey so far with partnership. I have tended to find partners who are a little bit more on the dismissive attachment style, whereas I tend to be a little bit more on the preoccupied People who tend to be on the dismissive attachment style, whereas I tend to be on the preoccupied What is happening? I can do this. I know how to talk. Preoccupied attachment style. Ooh. If you don't know the attachment styles, this way of looking at how people interact with each other in relationship, you can check out this video. I go through all 4 of the different attachment styles. This is work from John Bowlby, Mary Ainsworth, and it's useful to know. It's useful to know where you kind of land when it comes to how do I relate with others. So I have tended to find more dismissive people. I'm more preoccupied. Dismissive people tend to relate to relationship from a stance of it's a burden, it's hard to be in relationship, it's easier for me to be alone, I get more independence, I get to do what I want when I want. Preoccupied people tend to relate from the standpoint of I need to be in relationship. In order for me to be safe, you need to be feeling good, and I have to make sure that you feel good all the time. And it's a much more dependent kind of style rather than the independent style. And so I've tended to choose partners who would help me learn how to manage my preoccupied tendency and even pick up some of the beneficial qualities from being a more dismissive person, which helped me come into more security. We call this earned security in the therapy world, in the psychology's world, because most people have to figure out how to be more securely attached in relationship because we did not learn whenever we were younger. And so choosing partners who are going to challenge you to be more self-aware and step outside of your comfort zone helps you to grow. Even if the growth is discovering that that person is not the right person for you and leaving a relationship, that is still growth. That is still you coming into new health inside of yourself, new awareness of yourself, and acting on the world in a different way because what you have learned out of that relationship has benefited you. So when I think about my personal philosophy of relationship right now, because again, it's ever evolving, my thought is we get into relationship in order to become more integrated, to become more self-aware. Because if you know anything about being in relationship, you know there will be conflict, there will be disagreements. And ideally, what you're doing every single time that happens is rather than looking at your partner and blaming them for the uncomfortable situation, for the conflict, you're looking at yourself and going, what part do I play in this? What might I be doing that's contributing to this pattern? That's how we grow. I'm thinking now about one of my yoga teachers. I remember they said one time, the 2 people in the world, the only 2 people who can make me so mad, my mother and my wife. And there's truth to it. Usually we find a partner who is going to push all of our buttons, really drive us nuts. And I think that's amazing. I think that is where the most growth, the most internal development can happen, is in those spaces where you get so frustrated and so just crazy. Like, what is happening? I don't know. My life is so hard right now. Crazy. And it's usually our partner who does that to us. Thank God. Because then we get to change. And so now for this last piece, what is your personal philosophy around relationship? Start taking a look at it right now. Just ask yourself the question, whenever you think about relationship, what are you telling yourself the purpose of being in relationship is. Why would anyone choose to do something that is challenging? Why would people continue to stay in it even whenever it's hard? Why would people put themselves through sometimes really intense pain? I'm thinking about some of my people that I've worked with where they're so in love with each other and yet they're not having sex, or somebody's had an affair, or they're fighting all the time. It does not mean there isn't love between them, but there's so much pain some of the time because most of us come with baggage. We don't know how to be in relationship well. We're figuring it out together, and that means hurting each other sometimes. And so ask yourself, why would you choose to do this? And there might be some really practical ideas on your list of reasons why you would choose to do this. I want to have children and I'd rather do that with a partner. I want to be able to buy a house in the Austin market and it's impossible as a single person. I want to travel with somebody and have someone to share experiences with, someone who's been with me for decades and knows me. So there might be really practical reasons, and then there might be a little bit more ephemeral. That last one was maybe a little bit more ephemeral, but still there might be more ephemeral reasons, like what I'm suggesting. I'm gonna learn and grow by being in relationship. I'm gonna be challenged to become a better person. I'm gonna be able to reflect on my behavior more because there's someone who I'm going to be around all the time and we're going to trigger each other. What of these things resonates with you? What would you add to this list? Just start exploring, start asking yourself, what am I hoping for out of staying in relationship? What's the purpose of being in relationship with another human who is flawed and will drive me crazy sometimes, and who I will love? And they'll love me, but sometimes we'll hurt each other. What's the point? Okay. As you're exploring, please let me know what you're coming up with. Leave me comments below. I would love to hear what you're discovering. I love just hearing from you. It's wonderful for me. And we get to go back and forth a little bit and I can learn where I might be more helpful. Where are you getting stuck as you explore this topic of why am I in relationship? What's the point of it? And then remember to like this video, subscribe to my channel, practice intimacy, still words. Practice intimacy so you can have more videos just like this one. And I will see you next time. Bye for now.